Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of the A Game with theme music from a band that this guy actually knows very well. My thanks to Love and Reverse for giving me the theme for this show. I'm Rob Acampora, bunkered in on the Jersey Shore, and somewhere in the United States is this guy. You can call him the godfather of metal music, the founder of Megaforce Records and Craze Management. Thanks for taking the time, Jonny Z. Welcome to the A Game.
My pleasure, Rob. My pleasure.
Thanks so much, man. And the reason he's here is partly because of his book that's coming out on audio form, and that will be out on July 20th. Ming, if you want to put the book cover, there it is, Heavy Tales, the Metal, the Madness, the Music, as told by Jon Zazula. I mean, the book's been out, but now it's going to come out in audiobook form, and everybody can start ordering that right about now, as a matter of fact.
The pre-order is going on right now on Audible online.
Mm-hmm.
The actual book actually delivers July 21st.
Okay. Very cool. And we're going to talk.
The world will have it available.
Very good stuff. And there's a lot of great stories in the book. I mean, we're only going to touch on a little bit because we don't want to give too much away. We want you to go out and buy the book. That's the whole idea here. And to touch on every story of every band that you've come in contact with, Jonny, we would need about 2 days. So trying to pinpoint this, we got to start from the beginning. About that. Yeah, at least 2 days, at least. But from the very beginning, I mean, you started out, you were actually a businessman who suddenly opens a record store and then it gets into Megaforce Records. I mean, how did the timeline come together? First, you were working where? Were you actually working on Wall Street?
Well, in the book, you read that when I was on Wall Street, I got involved with some pretty shady characters and ended up doing time.
Wow.
It's from doing time that I needed some extra money to support my family because I had no real job, that Marsh and I started a flea market record store for collectibles, which turned into a huge heavy metal mecca.
Mm-hmm.
From heavy metal mecca came Metallica, came Megaforce,
right,
came the world we live in today.
When it comes to Metallica, is it true that you pretty much put everything on the line? I mean, every last dime you had to try to get Metallica off the ground?
Well, we were beyond spending the last dime.
Wow.
We were way down.
6 months more.
6 months, you know, the way Marsha described it, and we talk about it all the time, is that we were 6 months behind everything.
Wow.
We were always on time,
right,
but we were 6 months behind in all our bills while we were going through these early days.
I can't even imagine the stress that had to be going on, because at that point, it's obvious you're all in. There's no turning back. You're going for this come hell or high water.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it worked
out.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a total faith trip. We believed that there was no other path than to make this band succeed at all costs. And we gave it everything we had beyond what we had, sacrificed a lot, sacrificed our family, almost sacrificed our house, couldn't pay our bills, whatever it was. But we got it to work, you know. We managed to get Metallica off the ground and get them where they are today.
And you did some creative things, and this is a story that I find fascinating. Obviously, I'm a kid who grew up in Monmouth County, in New Jersey. I grew up in Marlboro. So the story, if we can go back to the summer of 1983, and Ming, I think there is a discount coupon that you can put up there about this one show that happened at the Route 9 roller rink in 1983. I mean, the last thing, thinking back on it, you would expect is Metallica playing at Skateway 9 in Marlboro. But it also shows the resourcefulness of just getting the band out there and saying, hey, look, we'll put them anywhere. People will come.
Well, you have to remember at that time we were working two bands. We were working Raven and we were working Metallica.
Right.
Raven was, that's Marsha interjecting. She's always
Hi, Marsha. Thanks for interjecting. I love it.
She's out of here already.
Oh, wow.
But you basically had Raven selling a lot of records and a new band called Metallica.
Right.
And we put them together, and between the two, we had a good show.
Yeah, you definitely did. I mean, and the show's only $6, which is unheard of, even at that time.
and the Skateway 9 was $5 and $1 off with the certificate,
Yes,
with
it
the
was.
coupon. Well, you wanted people to show up.
Right.
You didn't want
And
to price them out. My whole purpose was to break even, yet promote the band, promote the bands, promote the bands, promote the bands. Just any way you can.
In the business that you've been in for so many decades, was promotional budgets like one of the most expensive things, more expensive than maybe even recording the album?
Well, budgets were crazy to get from point A to point B to point C to point D and get around the country and back.
Right.
It was murder. And sometimes it would cost you, I don't even remember, but tens of thousands of dollars just to get your point across on a tour.
When it comes to, the budgets with that, what band do you remember out of your Megaforce label that you sit there and say, boy, we spent a lot of money just trying to get the word out on them?
Well, Venom.
There you go.
The initial Venom tour, they came with 9 people. I had to pay all their airfares, hotel accommodations, food, this and that. And they stayed a while. That was very, very intense. And also Metallica, who knew they were going to stay for months?
True. And it's a great.
I'm used to bands room and board 2 days the most, 3 days, but months.
I think we actually got a photo.
Months.
I was about to say, I think we got a photo of Metallica with you and a bunch of people. I mean, this is going back. There you are on the right there with the rest of the guys. I mean, that must have been some crazy times. Just a lot of fun, but a lot of stress, as you're saying. Bands are staying a little longer than expected. Budgets. Yeah. Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, that picture is very interesting because it's Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, and Guns N' Roses.
That is a great photo. Yeah, there's Scott Ian right in the middle.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, I do believe
it. I think over there. And there's Slash in the back.
Yeah. It's a great photo. It really is a great photo.
I see them all. And this was a KNAC shot, a KNAC promo shot.
It's a great photo. It's an absolute great photo. I was glad.
Fun shot.
Yeah, Steve Sudia, thank you so much for sending me that photo. When he found out I was interviewing you, he sent me that photo. I was like, wow. I mean, that's just one of those attention getter kind of photos of like, oh, the who's who of rock at that point in time. Fantastic stuff.
It was a cool shot, yeah.
Absolutely. Jonny Z, Megaforce Records, Craze Management here on the A Game, talking about his book, talking about some interesting stories. Speaking of Anthrax, the thing that always struck me was that this band got some respect here in the States, but it seemed like they were more successful, at least chart-wise, in the UK than they were here in America. Did you feel the same way, that maybe they were getting a little more respect overseas?
Well, Anthrax was a band we broke overseas and broke it back here.
Right.
It took effect much faster overseas, as I mentioned. And we were able to bring that momentum back with us to the States. Never as big, believe it or not, but it was good enough to get them support slots on Iron Maiden and Ozzy and Black Sabbath.
It worked out. It worked out pretty well for them.
It worked out well.
Yeah. Ironically, after you left the label, it came full circle with them. They actually came back to Megaforce within the last 5 years or so, and actually had a top 10 selling album at one point. So it's interesting how it has come full circle for Anthrax on many levels, where it's like you bring them into Megaforce, they go on, they get a little bigger, but they come back to Megaforce and reestablish themselves in a way.
It's two different Megaforces. It's two different times.
True.
Missy's great.
Yeah.
I would be with Missy any time of day rather than anybody else that's out there on the street today. She really pays attention and guides you. She had good training as well.
Yeah, she was with the label during those days with you. We're talking about Missy Colazzo, who took over the label. What was it around right around the early 2000s where she kind of took over, or kind of, was it buyout, or what was the deal with that at that point?
Oh, we sold her the company in 2001.
There you go. And she's been running it ever since. And I've noticed it's like Megaforce from what you had versus Megaforce from what she had. There is a difference as far as the lineup goes and maybe some of the music, but the talent factor, that's the one thing that is shared in common between your Megaforce versus where Megaforce is today. Yeah, the two labels. They are two labels, but immensely talented people has been the basis of both, we'll say Megaforce and Megaforce 2.0, for lack of a better term.
All right.
I'm glad you.
Take that.
There you go. Going back, there are other bands that I think kind of get lost in the shuffle when we talk about Megaforce. One of my favorites, King's X. Now, you have a great quote
Yes.
that I dug up about King's X. And you said, quote, "They created music for a caviar taste in a PBR world." That is just, I think that sums it up beautifully about that band. They were one of those bands that also, I felt like fell through the cracks, Johnny, because they had a sound that was so unique, but it was also like, okay, they're not rock enough for rock. They're not edgy enough for alternative, but yet people who found them loved them.
Well, King's X was a very unique band and still remains unique today.
Yeah.
I was in love with them. Marsha discovered them. They brought a lot of joy to me. They were a lot of work. We busted our asses to get them to where we got them to. Now, we sold 200,000 King's X. It's not
Right.
like they were failing miserably,
No.
but we never got them to platinum and triple platinum, which was where they truly belonged.
1990, the album cover Ming, if you'll show it, Faith, Hope, and Love by King's X. This was sort of the peak of for you guys with Megaforce. They get a top 10 song on the charts at rock with It's Love. And that song was like, if that didn't get to rock radio, nothing was going to. Because I remember that song as being part Beatlesque, the melodic part of the hook sucked you in. It's a beautiful, beautiful song.
Hey, they wrote a lot of beautiful songs.
They did, no question. There's no question. But that had to be like,
Yeah.
at least at some point for you, I can tell just by the way you're smiling that you have a real soft spot for the band. So I can imagine when that when that cracked top 10, there was that feeling of like, yeah, we did it. You know, it took us 3 albums, but we got them there. We got them to a level that we hope to at least get them to in one way, shape, or form.
You know, we had them on tour worldwide with AC/DC. You know, played arenas everywhere. We really worked the band. And again, caveat taste. You really need to love music and really be focused on what they were doing to appreciate what they were doing. Not everybody is into that kind of music. And but then again, 200,000, I was very proud of achieving that from nothing.
Definitely. And that also was sort of would you say the beginning of, okay, we've established ourselves as a metal label. Now let's dabble in a couple other things and see if we can branch this label further. And having a King's X, then bringing in Warren Haynes, somebody with his resume, and releasing his album. Ming, we got the album cover for Warren Haynes. This is the 1993 release from Megaforce, Tales of the Ordinary Madness. And with his work from the Allman Brothers, you know, this was kind of a nice, you know, branch out for Megaforce to have. And ironically, at that point, here's that release in 93, and then Government Mule comes shortly thereafter. My question, Johnny, is, was there any hint that Government Mule was coming, and was that a band that you thought, how can we get Government Mule and keep Warren on the label at that point?
No, that wasn't an issue at all. The problem we had with Warren Haynes was that we put a lot of money and everything behind it, and Polygram did not give us the radio help we needed.
Right.
Fire in the Kitchen and I'll Be the One. You know, these were songs for radio greatness.
Right.
And we got nothing. And I couldn't do it with our own company because we were too geared for metal. We weren't hooked up in radio. We depended on indies.
Right. So do you feel in a weird way Megaforce kind of got that label of like, they're a metal label. What are they doing with Warren? I mean, in a weird way, you got stereotyped, I felt.
Oh, yeah, we got that. We got that like you can't believe. Our whole life we got that.
Yeah. And it's not fair, but it is sort of the thing that does happen in the industry, unfortunately. It's like you establish yourself in one way, then you try to grow it in another way, and you run into this brick wall, for lack of a better term, even though here's Warren releasing this great album, and it's like, hello, can we get a little help here? And like you said, you're not really getting the help that it deserved.
We ran into failure After Failure. We had Nude Swirl, great band.
Know them well. My
Uh,
station, FM 106.3 WHDG, in the 90s were playing them. Jersey grunge, definitely.
I mean, we had wonderful stuff, but it fell on deaf ears at Polygram. That was not a good marriage. I thought it would be a good marriage. I walked into a bad world. And at that time, we went into management in a big way.
Right.
Because remember, 92, look what we did with Jesus Built My Hot Rod and Psalm 69 with Ministry.
Oh, my God, yeah. I mean, you literally took this band that was this new wave band and flipped it on its ear. I mean, to have Ministry go in that direction and suddenly it was a total reinvention of Ministry, and it was like a new chapter. Bravo to you and everybody involved in that.
Well, please understand that I have no control over what Al Jorgensen does or thinks.
Fair enough.
I could steer it the best I can. I could tell him when it stinks. I could tell him all kinds of stuff. And we could talk. But Al really delivered these albums. Yeah. And it was his brilliance and genius. I managed to give him the business mind and the agency and the dates and touring and the help he needed to stay on track to sell 2 million records.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I have no influence over any of those great sounding Ministry records, other than I love them as much as you did.
Talk about the management side. That's Crazed Management. And there were a few acts that were a part of not only Megaforce, but you were managed them in Crazed Management. Was that easier?
Absolutely.
Now, was that easier to have both parties come together where it's like, you're on the label, we manage you, and it all kind of synchronizes as well as family? Does it work always that way, or was it more difficult to have both parties kind of come together?
Well, I hated being both because you have no one to complain to, and you get all the blame for everything.
Well, yeah.
No, it's true. You get blamed for everything. No one can blame the record company for not giving promotion, tour support, videos. No one can blame the manager, whatever. He never gets the credit for the great tours he gets you, the great money he gets you. But the reality of life is we did well at both. Even we had a group, Love in Reverse. We had them signed to Reprise Records, which was Ministry's label. We had them all set up to do great, 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 great things, delivered a great, great album, a great EP. And again, at the hands of the label, everything fell apart.
You're segueing into exactly where I wanted to go. As a matter of fact, Ming, there's the trio of the men, Mike Ferrantino, Anders Carew, and Dave Halpern. All three are great guys. Michael, thank you for setting this interview up with Jonny Z for me. Michael's an old and dear friend of mine. And I got to talk to Michael a little more than a month ago on my podcast, and we were talking about sort of the moment that kind of made everything implode, since you're bringing this up in a weird way, maybe indirectly, when you talk about the label. There was an ABC series that was doing a documentary on Love in Reverse. So here's ABC's Turning Point. They're filming the band. Basically, the premise apparently was, how does the band come from the garage to become rock stardom? Now, somewhere along the line, that didn't exactly go according to plan. So when the final product came out, I'm getting the feeling, not only from the band's perspective, but from management's perspective, you guys, you were sitting there going, what the hell just happened?
The problem was they expected too much from me. And they expected too much from the label Reprise heads, especially Howie Klein.
Right.
Who was quite a wonderful person. And there was just Klein and Zazula and Marsha, really, and the team we had pushing Love in Reverse. Howie Klein and I got them on more tours than any manager could get a band on that ever wants to. But I think Love in Reverse didn't connect.
Would you if you allow me to inject this, would you say they were ahead of their time? Because I look at bands like Muse that have come out in the last 5 to 10 years. They sound a little bit like Love in Reverse. So in a weird way, Michael and the guys may have just been a little bit ahead of the curve.
Well, they were way ahead of the curve.
Mm-hmm.
Just listen to a song like Count on You.
Yes, good choice.
I mean, who could beat that, man? That's a great, great song. You know, we had good producers, Russ Titleman, Jimmy Braylower, great people on this album. They gave us the money, but they didn't know what to do. Reprise, and we didn't catch that miracle.
Right.
We didn't catch that flame. We didn't start a fire, and we fizzled out.
Would you say that looking back on it, maybe Love and Verse may have been in a weird way, the biggest disappointment during your run between management and Megaforce and everything in between?
No, they weren't my biggest disappointment because they had a good shot. They just
Fair
didn't
enough.
happen.
Right.
You know, but they were not my biggest disappointment by far.
Let me pose another question then. When it came to underrated in your world between Craze Management and Megaforce, who would you say was the most underrated? Other than King's X, who I still say was majorly underrated.
King's X was the most underrated band on Megaforce Records for sure. You know, TT Quick, underrated band on Megaforce Records for sure.
Agreed.
Violence didn't catch their storm, and we had a rough time with Violence. It's in the book, all the horror that went on with Violence. It wasn't their fault. It was just they had no management, I had no leading, and the Atlantic was killing me for signing them. It was a bad scene, you know. But that's the story as far as that goes, you know.
Jonny Z here on the A Game. As you're talking about all these things that come together with an album, with a project, with a band, I mean, what is the most expensive part of all this? Is it just getting the album together? Is it the promoting? Is it keeping, you know every inch of this? Where you think was like, good Lord, how is this just, the money's just kind of going tink, 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 tink down the road, and you're going, how? And you just...
Well, we were in the 80s and the 90s, and money being spent was a way of the world.
It's true.
You know, $40,000 videos, $100,000 videos, $50,000 tour support, $200,000 albums. You know, I mean, it was all expensive. Everything was expensive. And if the band didn't sell records, you know, you got killed. Like we had a band, Mindful, sold 150,000 records, and Epic hated them.
Well, that's an interesting.
It wasn't worth it,
right?
Epic.
Well, you raised,
wasn't worth it. They weren't Pearl Jam.
Right. And you raise an interesting point where you think 150,000 records is not bad for a new band, but it seems that the labels that you wind up getting associated with, it's like it ups the bar. Where it's like, okay, if this is a Megaforce release, okay, you know what, we're happy. But then you're dealing with the bigger fish who are distributing it, and they're expecting gold, platinum, and also
right.
I also think too, Jonny, you may disagree, but this was sort of the tail end of artist development as we know it. We're now more in an industry in 2020 where it's about a song, not necessarily about developing an artist. So if you have the right song...
Yeah, it's about a song.
Yeah. So when you were doing it, you were about developing the artist. Like you did the hands-on work with Metallica and Anthrax and many others to develop the artist.
Right.
Now, if you were...
Absolutely.
Right. Now let's take it to 2020. If you were running any label, let's say you're running any label today, that theories that you had then would be considered, in a sense, antiquated in the way the business is today.
I sent my book to be published in Europe by a man who used to run a record company in America, who now has the second biggest book publishing company in Europe.
Wow.
He wrote to me that this book is a real niche book for a certain kind of people. But from reading it, he was getting goosebumps, twitches on how I ran my company because I was so for the band, and never economically watching my pocketbook and taking care of the other side.
Right.
He felt that I ran my companies into the ground with loving bands too much and being irresponsible with budgets. So, you know, there's two ways to look at it. For the punter and for the music fan, I was great. I brought the great music, whatever the cost. But as a businessman, I was okay.
It's an honest assessment, my friend. Honest assessment.
You know, I had no one to teach me. I never graduated college. I did this as a fan, you know. I
Right.
just wanted to see metal happen and music happen. I love music, and that's what I did.
And that's a very good point to bring out, because it's not like you had a mentor to do this. You just went out on your own and kind of said, okay, I'm going to do this. But it's not like you had somebody over your shoulder saying, you know, if you do A, B, C, and D, it might help you better. So it was like the school of hard knocks. You basically got your master's degree just doing it.
On the balls of my ass, yeah.
Amen. And a lot of that and more in his book. Ming, put up the photo of the book cover one more time so this way everybody can see it. It is Heavy Tales, the metal, the madness, the music. It's told by Jon Zazula, brought to life by Harold Carlos Maldonado. How important was Mr. Maldonado in bringing these words to life for you, Johnny?
Well, Harold was excellent. You know, my memory is pretty beat up. And his main role was to put a timeline together with me and fill in all the holes so we could tell a story.
Right.
And I had to go from Roseland to childhood all the way through. And he managed to connect the dots. You know, him, people like Ed Trunk.
Oh, Eddie, Eddie, come on. I mean,
Eddie
I'll
was
get to him in a
big
second.
help to me.
Yeah, I was about to say, we'll get to him in a second, but continue your thought.
Yeah, you know, but Harold really put it together. I wrote the book.
Right.
But Harold helped me put it together, and there were times when I was stuck, and he gave me the few lines to like, yeah, man, I'll get on my surfboard and take it from here.
There you go. And sometimes you need that, and I think that obviously it helped with the creative process to create the book.
I couldn't have done it without Harold.
That's saying a lot. Since you brought up Eddie Trunk, I mean, Eddie's so influential, not only from being a DJ in New Jersey, everybody knows Eddie here, but now across the globe, everybody knows what Eddie is to what metal music is. So, I mean, you've seen him grow as a personality at what he does. I mean, how influential, I could see the smile too. How influential do you put Eddie Trunk in this world?
Well, Eddie's a metal voice. And he's a credible metal voice. And he's been around. And he knows these people. He's a good man to tell the story, you know?
Yes.
He tells it pretty straight. He tells it very well. And I love Eddie Trunk. You know, I always did. That's why I hired him.
Absolutely. He's one of those guys I've only met a couple times, but he's always been this very approachable, very likable guy. And if you get into a conversation with him, you think you're going to talk for maybe you'll turn into a 20-minute conversation. You're just kind of like, oh my God, this guy knows his stuff.
If you're talking to him about Kiss, you're talking about a 10-hour conversation.
No, well, you got a point there for sure. Johnny, as we're getting ready to wrap up, I mean, obviously you're still passionate about music, but what a lot of people may not know is that your passion for music goes beyond metal. I mean, I read somewhere you're very much into jazz music and you've been to other kinds like blues as well. I mean, has anything excited you in the last year or so that's come out that you sit there and go, oh, wow, I'd like to try to get that in my collection?
Well, there's nothing I want to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you this. I've been enjoying Venom Inc.'s new stuff they're writing for their new album. And Marsh and I get a big kick out of Arch Enemy these days. We listen to Arch Enemy a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still listening to some of the mellow stuff. I still listen to old Miles Davis.
Oh,
and I
nice.
still listen to Gato Barbieri and Roland Kirk and Charlie Mingus and Thelonious Monk. You know, I still get off on that stuff. These guys really were real mental monsters. They really put their souls and their spirit on the line when they played, and they got into grooves that took you on journeys.
Yeah.
You know, but jazz does that for me. I've been listening to a lot of Christian music lately, especially Elevation Church.
Interesting.
You know, I find that they rock me every day. I listen to 2 songs every day to really get me started from the Elevation Church. That gets me revved up, and I've been recommending that to many people. I sent that music out many a time, and I still tell people I still listen to the early Cream albums. You know, I'm still crazy about that band. Still today, it's always wonderful.
I'm not going to argue with that one. Absolutely not. To wrap up, I think this is a perfect way to...
but
Go ahead.
yeah, that's what it is. Music is a beautiful thing, and listen to it. I don't watch TV. So all I really do is listen to music all day, all night. I mean, there's nothing like some old Black Sabbath to really wake you up, Whenever the pool guy shows up, I put on some Dio and Sabbath just to rock the house a little bit,
I like this. I like this a lot.
It could be followed by Allman Brothers for
Very true. Very, very true.
So anyway, that's my story. I do want to mention that the Audible book,
yes,
which is again in pre-order now, available 21st of July, is done by me in my miserable, horrible voice.
And we've got the link right there that we're posting.
Story.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. You could get some samples on my website, jonzazula.com, just to see how awful it is. But I'll tell you, there's a bonus segment that's really fun.
Which is?
It's over 2 hours of Q&A.
Very cool.
And the questions are great stuff. How do you start a record company? Do you pay your manager when you only make $250 a night? What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff is on there.
So you basically,
you're
kind of laying out a blueprint in a sense at the end of it for anybody who's trying to get, like, for lack of a better term, an education into the music industry.
I'm an honest guy that always tries to help people.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I could tell you. If I hear you have talent, there's anything I could do. If I can, I try. If I have the time in my day. And I try to be the blueprint. Marsha and I were the blueprint for the indie label, do-it-yourself team.
Yes.
That succeeded against all odds.
True.
And that's the story we tell in the audiobook and in the book. How to do it and never say screw it.
Love that. And it's to wrap up. Props to you and Marsha. We have not mentioned Marsha a lot. I know you have. You guys have been married how long now?
41 years, August 1st.
It's fantastic. She's been a part of this journey from day
August 5th.
one.
August
5th. Did I just hear her in the background saying August 5th?
I know it's August 5th.
Okay.
I just was mental thought.
I mean,
God
I
forbid
can
I get it wrong.
Oh, yeah. I was about to say, you're going to go inside and get a lot of hell if you get it wrong there, man. But the journey that you both have taken, I mean, it's got to be more rewarding that you had Marsha by your side this whole way. I mean, in a weird way, that's part of this love story. The label, the journey.
Well, it is a love story.
And I think I wanted to get that point across. Yeah.
What's really cool, it's all about how a man and a woman could work together and sacrifice and get it done.
Right.
No bullshit, man. They just did it. And it's a good story for those who want to just see, like how did they do that?
Right.
You know? But that's it. That's just one of the sides, And the most important thing, as I mentioned before, I read the story. I tell it myself. It's really in your face. Chuck Billy does his own forward. He does the forward for the book.
Right.
In his voice. Even Harold Maldonado reads or tells his part. He has a little part in the book too at the end.
We'll remind
so everything is audible.
And we'll remind everybody one more time, July 21st is when it will be available. Pre-orders are being accepted. Go to the website. Ming, put the website up one more time. That's jonzazula.com to go to his personal website, get more information, and find out how you can do the pre-order and enjoy the damn book. It is worth the read. It's worth the audio book. You'll have a lot of fun with it. Some great stories. We only tip the iceberg here, and that's all we want to do. Give a little bit of teaser. Now you can go get the book. Jonny Z, thank you so much, man. I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Appreciate it, man. We'll be back again next week with the A Game. And Jonny, welcome back anytime. We'll talk about anything you want next time you want to come on.
Peace, brother.
Peace out. Take care. See you next week.